It goes back to the battle of want and willingness. When you have a performer who's just kind of towing the line, he or she's doing what's expected, a lot of times we become creatures of complacency. We just want to come in and do our job. We just want to do our job and go home. We hear those phrases still today, 20, 30 years later. It's the same phrase people were using 3 decades ago. I think you have to be skilled, and leaders would be well advised to do things in what we call gaps, right? Low performer, middle performer, high performer, whatever that is. If you have somebody who's in that middle of the road, I go back to that gap and we teach this to coachable minds. Become your own coach. So if you need to go to that high performance, A, are you willing? Not rhetorically, are you willing with actions that'll be evident to people around you? That's number one. Not just what you want, but are you willing? Then number two, we teach for leaders and coachable minds is we teach people something called the tiers of learning. So to fill this gap, to go from that middle performer to high performer, what are you willing to do? Number two, let's assume you get there. What's the benefit to you, which is the emotional attachment to change? Then we go into the tiers of learning. Knowledge, what do you need to know more of, which drives additional needs for training? Skills, what do you need to improve from an ability standpoint, which requires repetitive practice and application? And then the B is behavioral, confidence and conviction, void of fear and anxiety. Where do you feel like you need to grow your confidence? Once people start to map that out, what they're really doing is creating the visualization of personal change, but they're driving it by answering questions. Now, we actually will teach participants in Coachable Minds to do that. It would be well served if leaders were participants as well. So if you have somebody who, is an average performer, just getting by, meeting the bare minimum, not really going to that high performance, and we identify a path to get there, and all of a sudden a leader calls that person in 2-3 times in the course of 30 days and says, geez, you're doing a great job here, and you're doing a great job here, and you're really specific with where they're doing a great job. And then the third one is the person comes in and the person's boss is sitting there. And all of a sudden the leader praises the employee with their boss there. First, when they walk in, the employee freaks out. And what happens ultimately, and this is what creates really strong cultures, is that employee will be shocked when they see their boss's boss. And then when the boss starts talking about, I wanted Lisa, my boss, to hear me say this. You have really stepped up. Notice I didn't say, you're there, stop. Get complacent again. Keep going with what you're doing. It is noticeable. You're nurturing people up this hill called Change Hill. And it's steep, it's muddy, it's wet. People slide back to the bottom. Most people decide not to go up that hill. That's why we need coaches. That's why with Coachable Minds, for every one of our topics, we give them a module. Here's how you need to coach to this topic. We give the exact questions, activities, learning projects, how to tie it to their motivator, how to supplement it when they don't have time. And so the minute you understand the gaps and you create a pathway to get there, they become the co-authors of their own change. Most people, A, won't do it, B, may not know how to do it. And then C, if they know how to do it and they have a leader who's participating in that process of traveling in that direction, what ultimately happens is other people see this. I'll give you another example. When we have an employee come into an office and the boss's boss is there, that person leaves that office, guaranteed, even virtually. Coworkers said, what happened? Oh, geez, Bob and his boss, Lisa, were in there and they were just talking about the project they did last month and a great job. And they were kind of recognizing me for doing some really good things for the team. I was really kind of surprised. I was a little embarrassed and humbled. And I tell this to leaders all the time. When you call people into the office, you're not talking to one person. You're typically talking to at least 50 to 80% of your team. Use it to your advantage. And that's how you can get middle performers to go in that high direction of high performer.